Why do people suffer? That's a question that has occupied us for all of human history. See, we don't like suffering, and we don't like seeing others suffer. So figuring out a way to avoid or prevent it is something that occupies a lot of our attention. Over the centuries, we've come up with many different possible reasons for this. It's kind of a grab bag. Some people may take comfort from one or another of these answers, but none of them is really satisfying to everyone, and some of them aren't satisfying to any of us. That's what's going on in the book of Job. It's a story of a man who suffers from reasons that he never understands. Originally, it was a folk tale with a simple moral. When bad things happen that you don't deserve, keep faith in God. You might have noticed that this is advice, not an answer. So when Job was written down, we had about a little under 3 chapters total, but the wisdom writers decided to add 32 more chapters to the book. This makes up almost 80% of Job, and they're really what the book is all about. We looked at the folktale in part 1. We'll be looking at all of these 32 chapters worth of arguments and speeches, which is part 2 of our 3-part series. To catch you up, Job is a righteous man. Job got some bad news. He lost his wealth, he lost his family, he lost his health, and 3 of his friends came to help him. They were also considered wise men like Job. And so the help they offered was to explain to them why all this was happening. The problem was they were wrong.
I wish I had never been born. My life is so hateful that I'd rather be dead. Why is God keeping me alive instead of killing me and getting it over with? It's just cruel.
Do you mind if I say something, Job? You know why this is happening. Only the wicked suffer like this, not the innocent. And everybody knows that. And I know it better than most. God sent me a dream that showed me that nobody is righteous, not even the angels. And if we think we're good enough to question the Almighty, we're just not being honest. God is giving you a punishment to show that you have messed up somehow. And all you need to do is figure out what you did wrong and confess. And then God will forgive you.
You don't understand. This feels like God put all the sand in the world in a backpack and made me wear it. Then, while I'm trying not to be crushed, God starts shooting me with poisoned arrows. There's no escape. The best I can hope for is that God will crush me like a bug. When you 3 first showed up, I thought I might get a little relief. My friends would offer me a little sympathy, but no! You're just here to make me feel worse. I'm like a man dying of thirst, and instead of a glass of water, you bring me a mouthful of salt. What kind of friends are you?
Job, you're talking a lot of BS. Your children died, which means God was punishing them, which means they must have sinned. It's only logical. What you need to do is stop acting like this was unfair. God only punishes the wicked. That's the foundation of our faith. Question that and everything else will come tumbling down. So stop asking ignorant questions.
Do you think I don't know that? God is always right. Nobody can argue that. But that's the problem, don't you see? As impossible as it is for me to be right or God to be wrong, the fact is, I'm not guilty.
What a lot of words. You never get tired of talking about things you don't understand, do you, Job? You think you got God all figured out, but God is too big for you. Just accept it. God is right, and you're wrong. Tell the truth about everything you're covering up. That's your only hope.
Oh, thank you so far. I'm so lucky to have you here to explain it all to me. There's never been anyone who understands things the way you do, and I'm sure there will never be anyone after you're gone. But consider this. I already know everything you just said, and I also know it isn't working like that. It's so easy for you to look down on me, isn't it? You 3 all have nice homes and plenty of money. You act like that's proof that God loves you best. Then you look at someone like me who's suffering and decide I must be some kind of sinner. If you think that's how life works, you don't have the sense of a fish. God should talk to me directly. Maybe then I'd get an honest answer.
Job, you sure love the sound of your own voice. Instead of talking so much, why don't you try listening? You've got 3 wise religious elders here. Let us give you the answers.
You're so busy being wise religious elders that you've forgotten to be my friends. All I want is a little sympathy and kindness. All I'm getting is speeches that I haven't heard a single useful word yet.
You're just playing word games, Job. It's obvious you're a sinner and just pretending to be innocent. You're not fooling anyone. So stop playing games and confess before God destroys you for good.
You three just don't listen. I'm innocent. If this can happen to me, it can happen to any of you at any time.
Oh, stop insulting our intelligence. You're doing what sinners have done since the dawn of time. You secretly go after all your illicit desires while pretending to be a good man. Well, surprise, Job. Nobody gets away with that forever. The jig's up.
Please, listen to me. What you're saying is not the way life really works. There are plenty of good people who suffer unjustly. Just look at me. And there are plenty of wicked people who never get caught. Open your eyes and you'll see it's all true.
So you think now you know how it works better than God? What a load of garbage. For you to keep on lying like this proves you're not just a sinner, you're the king of sinners. We know all the things you must have been doing in secret. Oppressing the poor, stealing from widows, kicking puppies probably. Give it up, Job.
I can't give up. I suppose I could pretend I'm guilty of something, but I know it was a lie. If only God would speak to me face to face. I know God would see the truth. God wouldn't hide behind cheap theology the way that you guys do. But God won't answer me. It's so frustrating.
Who do you think you are? The Almighty says you're guilty, but you think a maggot like you has the right to say God's wrong? That is so arrogant.
You've got a real gift for the obvious, Bildad. God is great. God is wise. God is powerful. And I'm nothing but an ignorant flyspeck. Well, guess what? I already know that. You're so convinced that I'm guilty that you haven't listened to anything I've said. Maybe I am guilty. God knows I'm not perfect. But I can't figure out what I could possibly have done that deserves this harsh a punishment.
Amazingly, Job's friends stopped talking to him. We don't hear any more from them for the rest of the book. This finishes all the human arguments and sets the stage for the long-awaited reply from God. Well, almost. Before we get to God, a new character appears. He's a young man named Elihu who pops in for a quick harangue before disappearing again. And by quick harangue, I mean he goes on for 5 chapters, so settle in.
Hi, it's me, Elihu. I've been here all along, but I wanted to keep quiet and give the rest of you a chance to set Job straight. However, you chumps have blown it, so it's my turn now. They say that wisdom comes with age, but you three prove that isn't true. God's the one who hands out wisdom, and he's given me more than all of you. Okay, Job, you claim that you're perfectly innocent and that God's picking on you. Well, you're wrong. I don't know how anyone can say something so clueless. Maybe you haven't done anything yet, but God knows when you're going to sin even before you do. Maybe God was sending you punishment ahead of time as a warning. Did you think of that? Besides, who do you think creates the sun, the rain, and the snow? It's God who controls the universe and nobody else. A peon like you shouldn't complain. You should just watch in awe of God's greatness.
And then Elihu was gone, almost like he'd never really been there. Nobody replied to him, and he's never mentioned in the book after this. There's a reason for that, but we'll deal with that later. For now, God finally enters the conversation, speaking from a mighty whirlwind.
Why all this complaining, Job? You talk a lot, but you don't know much about how the world works. You weren't there when I created everything, and you don't understand all the intricate details I built into it. How would you have contained the destructive forces, the chaotic power of the ocean, and make it a functional part of the world? What about the sun and the moon? Could you have set them into the eternal rhythm of night and day? Do you understand how I use the power of storms to clothe the barren places with grass and wildflowers? What about the canopy of stars? Do you understand what they are or why they appear in such beautiful patterns? I've done all these things that are too wonderful for humans to understand. Do you think I did all of this just for humans? No, I also give knowledge of the weather to the birds and the animals. I guide them to shelter and food. The ostrich seems goofy to you, but I have given her the ability to run majestically, faster than the best horse and rider. Tell me, Job, do you really want to challenge me? Do you want to haul me into court and accuse me of foolishness, injustice, cruelty?
No, I don't. I've said all along that I just wanted you to speak to me directly. I know that you are wise and good. I'm humbled that you've granted my request, so I will just be quiet and listen.
Do you see that, Eliphaz? Do you understand, Bildad? What about you, Zophar? All this time, the three of you have been pretending to have all the answers. Only my friend Job was honest with me. Honest enough to confess that he didn't understand. Your pious pretending has wounded your friend and offended me, but I'm willing to forgive you if he does. So go to Job with an offering of bulls and rams. Show him the kindness and support you should have given him all along.
Once God speaks, it's pretty clear that Job's friends are wrong and Job is right. Job has expressed himself honestly, even though all he's had have been doubts, questions, and anger. And yet, in expressing these honestly, Job has earned God's respect, and God calls him friend. While this is pretty obvious, there are some people who will still point to Elihu and say that he's got the real explanation. Elihu says that God causes us to suffer for some mysterious purpose, and we just have to trust that the suffering is ultimately for the good. Elihu was added by a later writer who didn't like the way Job turned out with all the lingering mystery about suffering. He came up with what he thought was a clever solution, invented a character named Elihu, and voila, we have what may be the very first Mary Sue fanfic of all times. If you don't know the term, fanfic is short for fan fiction, and it refers to a writer creating an unofficial sequel to a story that they really like. This is usually published on the internet, and it happens a lot with popular franchises like Star Wars, Star Trek, or Harry Potter. A Mary Sue fanfic is when the author adds a new character, the Mary Sue, to the story. This is someone who expresses the author's opinions and solves all the problems. But while it's tempting, I don't think Elihu's answer is the right one. When God speaks, God doesn't say, I have sent you this suffering. God simply says, you don't understand why there is suffering. So perhaps God didn't send the suffering after all. What we know for sure is what God has done. As God speaks, it becomes clear that God has been there with Job all along, listening, caring, and offering compassion and support. In the end, that's probably a better answer than we get from any explanation at all. We will be taking a deeper look at this in our final part of the study of Job. Until then, if you like this content, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and come back often.